For the second time, we are out of the water at Gulf Harbor. Last time we had our rudder repaired and the bearings replaced, which was due to wear and tear, but we missed something. So as we were preparing Gargoyle for our next passage, we noticed that we've got some stress cracks in the floors of the bilge. So we called a surveyor in. He took a look at things and told us probably a good idea to get those looked at and repaired. So we're here at Brin Wilson Boat Builders. So let me show you the cracks we're talking about. So the issue that we have is that this is a modern production boat. Our Beneteau is a 2011 Oceanus 50, and all modern production boats are built basically the same way. So when we look at this, what's below the flooring is basically three components. One is the keel, two is the hull, and then three is the grid. So what happens when they build the boat is they take and they form the hull in a mold, they pop it out of the mold, and then they have built separately a grid that is going to give the structure or stiffness to your hull. So they put globs of glue down along the bottom of the hull. They take that grid and then they drop it into place and press it down into that glue. So that glue or epoxy is what holds the grid and the hull together, and then that's what forms the very rigid structure of a modern production boat. Then they go and they bolt the keel onto that structure. Those are the keel bolts that you can see here. So our issue that we have discovered is that we have some stress cracks along the edges of that grid structure. They're not at the keel bolts, they're actually over and more along the center line where we have the drain holes that are rather roughly fiberglassed into the boat itself. So what we've decided to do after seeking a surveyor's assistance is to have one of the very qualified boat builders we're lucky to have in New Zealand, Brin Wilson, go in, grind those out, take a look underneath to make sure that our grid is still adhering properly to the hull. If it's not, if for some reason, we've got 25,000 pretty hard miles on Gargoyle, if for some reason they've started to pop loose, they'll take that and they'll fiberglass that down. So basically put tabs across that grid, hold it back onto the hull, stronger than new at that point. Then they'll go in and they'll clean this back up, flow coat it, and it'll look beautiful. So we're going to come back every few days, check on the progress of Gargoyle as they work on her, and we'll see what we get. As I said, we have very minor stress cracking. If you're interested to see what a major keel grid failure looks like, take a look at Expedition Evans here on YouTube. We'll put a link down below in our description. Day 3 of Gargoyle's repairs here in Gulf Harbor. So day 1 was really on Friday, and that was masking off the interior, because when you grind fiberglass you get particles everywhere, so it's like a dust storm even when they use vacuums to pull all of that out. So they spent a good half day to full day just putting up the plastic to mask off the main cabin. Yesterday, after the weekend, was day 2. That's where they really got into the work, and that's where we found out that we don't really have anything significant from a repair perspective. So the workers came in, they ground out around where all of the stress cracks were, and when they got underneath, they found that there had been no separation and no movement of our grid. So if you remember, our grid lays against the hull and gives support to the boat. So that grid is simply glued in with globs of glue that go down. Then they drop it into the glue and it sets. Well, our worry was that that glue had popped loose and the grid had come loose and we had some movement in there. After grinding out different patches, they found there's absolutely been no movement, no issues at all with the grid and the hull. So that's good. So they've gone in now, filled back in and ground down where those cracks were, which are simply some stress cracks around some, looks like some pretty poor fiberglass work done at the factory. That's all been cleaned up. So now today, day 3, what we see is that they're going in now and they're laying down some new fiberglass across those areas to go ahead and build that back up again before they go in and fill it, paint it, and put it back into better than new condition. So great progress, really great news for us, and that we really have no significant damage on the boat whatsoever.
We are in day 4 and we are in our little bubble here, and just an update. This morning we were in just taking a look at a few things, and they had finished all the fiberglassing around the keel grid in the hull, and they'd done a whole bunch of sanding. And today the final step was to do the painting. So at this point, Gargoyle is pretty much done. Hopefully the bubble will go down over the next couple of days, and she's going to make a splash.
Well, all the cardboard is up in the cockpit, which means that they are done. So I'm going to go downstairs and take a look and see what we've got. So as you recall, when we started out, we had the cracks along the edges. We weren't exactly sure what was going on underneath. Guys at Brin Wilson have opened it up, taken a look underneath, and determined that we don't have any separation of our hull grid from our hull, which is really good news. And then they fixed whatever we had, and they've cleaned it up. And this just looks fabulous. Kind of like to have them do the whole boat. Okay, maybe not. So one thing we're noticing here in the boat, as all the work's done and the cocoon is gone, is it is worth every penny that you pay for them to put that plastic up to seal the boat off when doing interior fiberglass work. There is nothing on the woodwork here from the fiberglass work. And let me tell you, fiberglass makes just an incredible mess. So thanks, Brin Wilson. Looking good. 12 days after we hauled Gargoyle, we're now ready to splash back in the water and get preparations going for our next adventure. The time here in Gulf Harbor was well spent, but a little costly. So just to give you an idea, Canadian dollars, the haulout and the stands for 12 days cost us $2,100 Canadian. On top of that, the repair work, which wasn't nearly what we were afraid it could be, turned out to only be about $5,500 Canadian. So, could have been much, much worse. Now we're back ready to go, and we're going to head downtown, start to stock the boat for our trip west and our next adventure. Until then, if you like what you saw, make sure to give us a thumbs up down below. Click on the subscribe button if you haven't already, and the little bell to be reminded of our next episode. Until then, ciao for now.
Sammy's going to test everything out and make sure it's okay.
He has had...